Hello.
Senior
We're here.
correspondent over at Regional One. When are we getting a banging intro theme?
Happy New Year.
Oh, we do have one actually. We
have
do
one.
have
We
a
have a whole
3-minute
song.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's okay. I knew what I meant.
yeah, whole
Yeah.
song.
Baseline.
Oh.
When are we getting another one?
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
We're back on
It's the next year now.
Woo!
It is.
We're back on. This is
truly
probably
is.
the first, and I think this might be the last stream we do on Facebook.
Yes.
Potentially.
We're moving to
We're gonna do-
YouTube.
Yeah. I'm going to try and see if we can do both at once. That'd be ideal. But if that doesn't work, we'll probably have to do a test stream. Stream something for no reason.
Yeah, we can do a solo stream next week, maybe.
Bonus points if you manage to join that stream.
Yeah, so we'll 100% definitely be on YouTube next week, but
Allegedly.
yeah, trying things because I think I might. If I have two different software, I think I can do it. But I don't know. I don't know if the computer will blow up.
I don't know if I have the capacity.
Yeah, well, we will see.
He's a genius.
When you got one Ethernet cable.
One stream, isn't it? Where you can do something like that. One stream, so it diverts it through different
One
channels.
stream? Regional one stream?
You can, but it's
One
really
stream does
temperamental.
plenty.
It doesn't let you do Facebook because I've had a look. There's like it's called. There's one called like Restream or something, and it let you do like Twitch and YouTube, but it won't let you do like Facebook and something else. It's really annoying. You have to pay for it.
But if you're not going to be on Facebook, that's okay.
Easy just having it on YouTube.
Are people going to think that you've employed a fat person to be in Regional One?
They think that Aaron had a really, really strange New Year. That's what happened.
Yeah, this is Aaron post-Christmas.
Yeah.
You'll notice he's no longer ginger. Improvements were made.
No one knows what colour my hair is from the front.
They're from behind, is that what you're saying? Right, I think we should get this stream kicked off.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Hope you're all doing very well. Hope you've had a fantastic Christmas and New Year. It's good to be back. We haven't streamed in a little while, so we thought we'd bring on a very special guest, and that is Mr. Matt Black of Hangover Hill. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, nice to be here. Feel younger already.
Yeah, emphasis on the special.
No one else. Yeah. Yeah. So, Matt, how about you? Perhaps the best thing to do is give our watchers a bit of an introduction to yourself, what you do, so involving obviously your live musicking, anything you do with live music actually, and obviously your studio.
Oh, the short version is I'm a pianist, a comedian. I run a recording studio. I make records. My mum thinks I'm in jail. She's happier that way. That's the shortest version. But it is. It's a 34. This year it'll be 34 years. I've been a professional musician, making money from music. And it started out as just playing the piano in hotels. Then gradually the links between the songs got longer. I started to get a little bit more confidence talking and telling jokes in between. And then I started getting booked to be a comedian. And then the piano playing took like a step back. Although people will argue, and I would argue, that piano playing is still the thing I do the best throughout everything I do. And then halfway through that, I started to want to do my own CDs, set up my own little studio, and that's grown and grown and grown and grown. Now it's a commercial studio, and it's very busy. So now mainly I do gigs whenever I want to. I've now got to the point where I just take the gigs on I want to do, which is just great, a great situation to be in. And then record different things, bands. It's we've been working with Regional One just recently. That's just hilarious. My wife Mel is the co-director of my company, and she sits in the office pissing herself listening to this lot recording tracks.
Can't hear us. It's just a hobby.
Yeah.
But I suppose if there was a mantra, is that what I like to do is anything that's not working for a living, and that's if it feels like it's working for a living. Not interested.
Not interested.
And, so you just feel like the millionaire lifestyle. You get up, you do what you want to do. You do earn a bit of money. There's there's enough money for me to pay the bills. So eventually, if you're on the right side of that line, that to me is like being a millionaire.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Would agree with that, I think. that's pretty cool. Sort of, as you say, it started off as piano. I mean, obviously, I think I don't know about you boys, but that's how I sort of first met Matt. A long time ago. I think it was just a cafe or something or other. You were playing a show there, and I thought it was fucking hilarious. So yeah, you had some good jokes and that, and stuff I wasn't expecting to hear sort of in a daytime cafe. So I remember that quite.
Yeah, there's a lot of inappropriateness goes on inside my head. I'm not very good at editing it out, what goes through my head and what I should be saying and what I shouldn't.
It's the way to be. You'd rather not edit it out. I don't think the gold that
Well,
falls
it's
out
actually
of your
now.
face,
It's
mate.
part of the act. It's part of the act. I've got nothing against people's opinions, but I just don't like being pushed upon me. So if someone gets offended by something, then literally just fuck off, because I'm not going to tie you to the table. You know, I don't go into your office and expect me to do what you do. You've come to me. If you don't like it, leave. That's it. I don't get pissed off with that. It improves my audience. It improves your lifestyle. People like that are like clouds. Once they disappear, the day gets a whole lot better. but the world, the basic premise is the world needs a sense of humor, and people have got to see that for what it is. Humor is the differences in everybody. In the armed forces, everybody lives off a sense of humor, taking the mickey out of each other all the time. It's an important part of keeping healthy, and I can see that with the destruction of sort of humor in the mainstream, which it'll never go away. People will do what they want to do whenever they want to do it. But because of like let's call it mainstream television, let's call it the BBC, for example, because that seems to corner that market. Then they don't treat people like they're in the real world, and because of that, mental health has gone down. So the two things are in parallel. So you've got to, with humor, it's a really, really important thing. It lets off pressure. It means you can handle things. It actually improves your brain cells, thinking things through, having those sort of, I don't know, dopamine. It's those feelings. It makes your brain work, as opposed to living in a goldfish bowl where everything's nice and safe.
I guess sort of looking at things from different angles, and I think that's a lot of what humor is finding an alternative approach to the thing that is reality. So I mean, I think you're probably quite aware we can sort of joke about anything with the band, and it's the same when we're in the studio with you. We feel very safe to just make jokes about anything, and obviously a big thing for people is whether you mean it or not. And obviously you're not meaning the things you're saying. You're just trying to find a route to make the other guys laugh, and it could be about the most awful thing. Yeah, but yeah, it's looking at those things from another angle and trying to find a way to make light of it. I think is very important.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. People do get offended. That you're not gonna stop that. But the problem there is that when they need to change everybody else's behaviour just for them, and that's where it goes wrong. So yeah, people get offended. People can call someone whatever they want to call them. If you're going to live in a free world, then that's what that has to be. And but then if people take offence to that and they want to change the world so no one can do it, then they're living in the wrong sort of world for me. And that's the way I do it. So I don't change people's opinions. I just don't talk to them anymore. Yeah. And it improves. It really does improve my circle of friends. People know what I'm like. That's fine. I've got people in my circle of every shape and style and colour, and they tell me jokes that just aren't funny because I'm coming from the wrong perspective. And I mean, my stepson Jordan, another musician, he's the best daughter I've ever had. He's absolutely brilliant. But some of the things he comes up with, he's a fantastically quick musician and a really good lyricist and great to work with. And that humour between me and him is fantastic fun. You know what I mean? And it makes me part of it. But the jokes he says, and I can't tell because they're not from my perspective. It doesn't make it work. So people are just jumping on that. Oh, I'm offended. I want to feel important because they're living in a world that's making them feel less important. And it's the only thing they've got left is their own little world. So you've got to worry about them. Yeah. If you see people behaving like that, you've got to worry about them a little bit. And are you all right? Is there something else? It's never about the comedian they're in front of. If they're upset about something, it's about something's going on inside them, and they can link the two together to externalise it. That's all it is. We sound like we've gone on people three, haven't we?
Yeah. Absolutely, I agree with you entirely. I mean, again, you're probably aware from working with us, we're all quite big comedy fans actually in the band. So when we're on tour, often we'll put on shows like Kill Tony or just a stand-up comedian special that's come out recently, so Shane Gillis or whatever's come out on Netflix at the time. And just seeing the variation of comedy, I think, is one of the big selling points for me. With a show like Kill Tony, it's 60 seconds for random people off the street, essentially. They put their names in a bucket and they have 60 seconds to be funny or not, and often they're not. But seeing such a variation of sort of perspectives through comedy, I think, is one of the big gifts of it.
Yeah, it's absolutely that. It's a celebration of the differences in people as opposed to making that a problem. And that's where people have to get, they've got to realize that they're being more antisocial than the jokers if they start to rant and rave and stop people from doing what they're feeling. They're doing it worse than anybody else, but they just don't see it that way because people don't, especially thick ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen sort of the importance of the comedian or the jester characters quite historically, I think, significant as well. For example, I know there's sort of tribes in America that would sort of be, obviously the Americas before the Europeans arrived, they had specific roles for like a jester-like character that would be there specifically to take the piss out of things, to see if they could be taken the piss out of, and if they couldn't be, you'd then start finding your sort of tyrannical forces in the tribe. So I think it's still such an important thing, and it's pretty crazy that we're trying to, well, not we, but society in general, in a lot of ways, or establishments within, it's trying to push it away. It's so important to have it. People crossing that line to find where the line is so necessary. And I think comedy is I think it's probably the only thing I consider more difficult as a performer than
we've
singing,
talked about
drumming,
this like for sure. Like
Comedy is psychology, really. It's very, very simple. There is that thing that you're out of. There's a sort of danger level to it where you could do the same thing in front of two different audiences, exactly the same way.
Completely different,
completely different reactions, and it's down to how you've got there, and it's basically how you link, how you're getting people to think about what you're saying. And then if you actually look into it, Ricky Gervais has done a fantastic book on this, and I think Jimmy Carr has as well. It's where people laugh. It's the twist at the end of something that you didn't see coming. You told a joke, you painted a picture about a scenario, and then at the end you've twisted that scenario to make it think, oh, it's not what I thought it was, and that shock is what makes people laugh. That's basically what all laughter or humor is. But there's also a saying, I think it was Oscar Wilde, that says you can analyze humor. It's like dissecting a frog. You can dissect a frog, but it tends to kill the frog.
That's the adage of explaining a joke kills the joke. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But then it's how you do it. There's a timing thing. It's an instinct to it, and if you have a sense of humor, then it's a natural thing. But it's not like something you can rely on. You can't really learn it. But I think you can appear to be funny if you're just confident. There's lots of ways people can just talk. They're not actually funny. They're just entertaining because they're confident. There's a lot of psychology to it. But it is, and where would you be without humor? That's right, Germany.
So I think before we move on to more of the sort of musical side of your career and lifestyle, perhaps we could get maybe sort of top 3 inspirations when it comes to comedy for yourself.
Big one for me when I realised comedy was a thing. Billy Connolly, everyone says Billy Connolly, but there's a reason for that. He notices things. He doesn't just see something. There's a great line I use all the time. I love those questions that don't have answers. It's about where the world lives, and why does that exist? And Billy Connolly, he come up with this great one, and it just always comes back to me. He's like, who's the bloke that discovered you can get milk from cows? And what did he think he was doing at the time? And then you think, who was the bloke that actually
someone did it first?
Yeah. I mean, there's like a sell-by date on sour cream. It's already gone off. There's things. What do you plant if you want to grow seedless grapes? They exist. If you eat cured ham, do you ever wonder what it had? I know that Callum wouldn't, but one of my favourites, and it's more modern because I do a lot of gigs in London, and in London they've got drive-in cash point machines, right?
And they've got one.
Just
that's a thing apparently.
Well, you can't. They're great. They work brilliantly. For the last 10 years, I've seen them. Instead of like a McDonald's, for example, you're driving around the back of a bank. You don't have to get out your car. You don't have to park up in London, which is a bonus. You open up the window, you put your card in, you press the button, you get your cash. You don't have to get out your car. It works really well. And I was using one, just getting some cash out, going to the 100 Club a few months ago. And I realised, I've been using these for 10 years. I realised I was pressing the buttons and they got Braille on the buttons, right? Who the hell do they think's just driven in? There was a meeting. Someone had a meeting where they said, let's put Braille on the
We need
buttons.
Braille on
the needing those.
It's a real
Well, you know
world
for a
thing.
fact that if they didn't put Braille on them, they'd be sued by someone.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, it's just that's a funny. That's another thing anyway. But that's Billy Connolly, and then another guy who is really clever. I think he's gone past his best. He's got a little bit militant, a little bit protesty, but Eddie Izzard, absolutely fantastic, absolutely fantastic. He does this whole thing about why isn't the world overrun with ducks? It all boils down to the ducks float, and if Noah's Ark existed, then why have we got ducks? not everywhere. he's right. The religion's the whole thing, isn't it? Where do you find the 4 blokes called Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Middle East? Right. There's loads of different things you can touch on, but Eddie Izzard, him, and Bob Hope. Funny enough, when I was a kid, I used to like the Bob Hope films, more like a slapstick thing. But then when you watch his clips now, his timing is millisecond perfect, and he just absolutely has the thing. And Bob Monkhouse was exactly the same. His timing and his mugging, what they call the mugging, where they just look up and look all confused. It's fantastic. There's a million people I could have put, but those 3, they're probably in the top 3 for many people. It's not going to break in any rules, but there's a reason for that. They really do. Yeah, they define it. You know what I mean? They define comedy. And just recently, Chris McCall, the blind guy who was at the in Strictly Come Dancing. He won the Strictly Come Dancing, the blind comedian. He's absolutely hilarious. I mean, it's from his perspective, though. I overheard him talking in a gig that he was doing. He was saying, I got off a plane, went to Rio. He's a Liverpudlian, blind. He doesn't wear glasses. You can see that he's blind. He can't see what he's up to. He's got this sort of smirk look on his face all the time. But he says, bought a holiday to Rio, got on the plane with my missus, got off the plane, and I was thinking, it felt only about like 35 degrees. And I said to her, I'm a bit pissed off, he says. Spent all this money, we're in Rio, and it's only 35 degrees. She went, it's midnight, you twat.
That's brilliant.
You don't see that position, right? Yeah, it's great. So there's they're out there, and it's just great comedy. Yeah, where would you be with a world without laughing at something, And it doesn't mean you hate those people. It doesn't mean you're being nasty. It means you're part of the gang, not the outsider that's trying to ruin it for everybody else.
Exactly that. And I'd say I know there are studies sort of giving away that sort of laughter might sort of extend life. It de-stresses, decompresses parts of the body. That there's loads of reasons to laugh, and it's a reaction anyway. So I mean, obviously you laugh in different situations, if it's bad or good. So the more the merrier. Comedians are out there actually extending your life, so you should probably all thank them, really.
Yeah. You should all buy them. Give them a gold bar or something. Give them houses and stuff. Keep them there.
I wonder, do you think sort of a natural rhythm, I assume you sort of found with music, because if I remember rightly, you say you don't read music, you're self-taught to an extent. So a rhythm that you sort of found within music, do you think that maybe also helps you a lot with your comedy?
I don't know. I do play by ear. I've learned as I've gone along. I've learned the keys and what a major and a minor is, so that if I'm working with bands, that's obviously really handy. And when they say I'll play B flat minor, and I call it the Stevie Wonder method when you don't read music, because he doesn't read music either. if you think about it, you need to cut up real music because you need your hands to play, don't you? Right?
Yeah.
But if you go back further, I think music's the first language. I think you have drums, cavemen, things like that. You've got tribes. They communicate over distances with like the instant sounds and things like that. And I think music, it transcends languages. It transcends time, really. And I think if languages that we speak now with words and all the rest of it are derivatives of music. So I think music's actually even more instinctive than any other languages. So again, in terms of communication, you can play a track, the same song, in different ways, and people know that you're sad, or you know that you're happy, or they know that you're jokey, through music, without having to know what it's about. There's something else to it. There's another dimension to it. And again, it does something to your brain. Musicians, we're famous for for having an IQ, because you're using your brain to decode it, but you're decoding the whole thing in 3 dimensions. It's not harder; it's easier, but you're just using part of your brain maybe that other people don't use a lot. Music, musicians. It's a great thing to be a part of that music fraternity, and it's a fantastic thing to be part of. So the music, I suppose, the way I play the piano, and is covering up mistakes. So learning how to cover up what you didn't mean to do in a clever way means that then you're not scared of playing something in case it's wrong. And by that coming about, it means you can play with more expression. You're not worried about
you're not
the
limited.
word.
You're not in that box. You're not in. This is something that, like, over the last, I'd say year, 2 years especially, this is something like specifically I've noted on learning more about my own playing is I was always like boxed in by the scales or whatever, because I was self-taught as well. I never did like lessons, or I don't know how to read music or anything, but obviously you learn the scales, you learn how many things is in this iteration, and how many, you learn all the rules. But if you fall one note out of that, it's learning what to do with that, and you can only learn that by doing that a handful of times and then playing around with it. And before long, you will realize, like you said, there really isn't any wrong note. If it's, oh no, it's not in key, oh no, it's not in a scale, oh no, whatever, it's not in anything. But it is just a way you can falter an expression out of yourself in an entirely different way. Like, it's all just tools. I feel like what you said then is a really important step for anyone who's like learning an instrument or learning music. It's a real important hurdle to overcome. Is like, don't be afraid to make the mistakes, because they're not actually mistakes at all.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think what you're saying. I was going to say what you're saying about the communication side of it. We're too in sync, Matt. What I'm saying about sort of the communication side of it, I suppose all communications. I mean, it's going to sound funny, but like watching something like Planet of the Apes, I watched it without subtitles and felt I could still kind of get what was going on.
There's a reason for that. Yeah.
There's a reason for that. There is a reason for that. It's rhythm and pitch, isn't it? Like it's to do with the expression of the sounds they're making, and how much time is left between them. If they're looking for a reaction, if they're just making a statement, then they're just going to continue on with the rhythm. But that in mind with music, obviously, I think what you're saying about musicians often being very good communicators, I think the understanding of that rhythm and pitch movement through an instrument, you're just communicating through a different language. I think you're right with that.
Yeah, but not only that, it's like a language that everyone can understand. Like it's like you say, it transcends
universal.
Yeah, like everyone's just born with that.
But there's also psychicness. I mean, when I've seen your band, when I've worked in bands, there's a thing. It's faster than speed of light. But if you're doing stuff, again, if you're in the zone, you're not thinking about it too much, and you're in that sort of semi-conscious zone, as it were, then things are flowing. And you know, some guy's going to do that. You just know he's going to do that. You don't know why he knows he's going to, but he does it. And then you know he's going to do that, so you know what you're going to do, so don't get in the way of that. So it all sounds great. But you see that happening with bands sometimes, and sometimes you're in a band and you think, oh, this is a great band. It only happens a few times. It doesn't happen in every band you're in at all. But you get some bands sometimes, and it just clicks. And my son Chris and I, when we play together, we're really psychic. We're going to be. We've been all his life. You know, we've been playing guitar and piano together and stuff like that. But there's maybe you pick up on as you said, Steve. It's music is like certain twitches or certain things, certain angles of face. I don't know, but maybe you put it all together in one sort of thing, and you know what's going to happen because of that. It's an incredible place to be. It's absolutely
I think with the things like, because Sai and I get this a lot. That's why, like, the way we write and the way we can do it, we just know what the other person's thinking. But I think it's entirely based on a whole person's thought process is built up over years of like all of their past experiences and everything that experience in their lives. And of course, if you share that with someone else and you have like a bunch of experiences that are relatively similar or the same entirely, you're going to have the same foundational building blocks. So your brain is going to operate in the same way. So you'll hear a certain, I'm going to use the word trigger, but I don't know if it's the right sort of word. Like you hear something that sends one of your neurons off, and that goes down a different path, and it goes down a different path. And if you've had the same experiences, then chances are that path's going to be the same. So it just makes it sort of easier that way. Like,
I know where you're going with that. Yeah, I mean, it's a broad strokes thing though, because there's no one. It's like fingerprints, isn't it? You're never going to have those.
Yeah, never going to have exactly the same for sure.
No.
So
you're right.
I agree with that a bit, but I also think I've started looking at it more and more like this recently, and I was discussing this with a friend the other day actually. But I'm not a religious person particularly, or spiritual or anything like that, but I do think there's something to the idea of sort of summoning the muse. Now, when you're writing with someone, especially if you're both giving, and when I say summoning the muse, that's just an oversimplified way of saying giving that moment and creative process the respect that it deserves in order to create something actually worth creating. So the idea of doing that with someone, I think, that sort of shared respect for the moment makes that communication so much easier. I don't know about you guys. I think we've talked about this before, Stevie, in terms of our sort of personal songwriting, but the best songs seem to come already formed in your head.
Already there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not religious. I'm not particularly spiritual or anything like that. But where's that coming from? Why is it already ready? I know, right?
The angle as well, like fucking looming over us. Yeah, for anyone who has joined the stream, this is a band live stream and not a cult indoctrination. You are safe, I promise.
Spot the difference, dude. Honestly, spot the difference.
We turn Callum off, everyone will think it might be.
You can never turn Callum off. He's an animal.
Yeah, he's ready to go all the time.
Or he's turned on.
That's the cult bit creeping in.
But you can hear it, like, especially when Stevie sends a guitar and drum track over.
Yeah, he's that drum hesitant to use the word.
You can almost.
Hey, you should hear the shit I
tell. You can almost tell what he's gonna do next. Obviously, he's not going like absolutely crazy with the riffs and everything and structure, but you can already hear or just know what he was thinking at the time. Yeah, you can always piece.
That's good.
Pieces together.
You're getting a tool track next time. You fucking you can predict that.
We have a bit of an analogy in the band we use actually, where we sort of talk about train tracks and sort of pulling in at the same station and heading in on the same train and on the same tracks and all this kind of stuff. And it tends to be the songwriting that all of us, when we're creating a demo, the others will already seem to be on those tracks and know where the train's headed, what the next station looks like, and when they can get on and start adding their own flair to it. So that's the analogy we use anyway.
From some sort of absolutely deranged version of the phrase train of thought, and it's literally just I can't even remember the first time this happened. Like, honestly, this has been going on for about 4 years at this point. This analogy of train of thought. You can remember?
I'll explain that one off stream.
Oh yeah.
You remember?
It's a funny one.
Even station. Trains of thoughts.
I can't remember the origin of it. I understand fully how it all works. Believe you me, I'm there. I'm on the tracks, boys. I understand.
Yeah, man. On high-speed rail at this point.
Yeah. Bullet
train.
Then
that's only part of it as well, because once you've written the song, the actual production part of it afterwards, there's a lot more pitfalls in that part. I was listening to an interview yesterday with Rick Wakeman. I'm a massive fan of Rick Wakeman. I think he's the best keyboard player, piano player that ever lived. And
I met his son, I think. Yeah.
I've worked with Adam, and I was scared shitless. He was on. Yeah,
brilliant, isn't he? Yeah.
I was on just before him, and I had my grand piano, and he was playing after me. I was like, "Oh God, why can't I just go home?" But I've done the similar thing with Rick as well, and I was really chuffed with what they said afterwards. They're not the sort of people just to say, "Oh, that was nice," I was really chuffed with how it went afterwards when we got chatting. So it meant a lot to me to work with those guys because they're what I think about when I'm playing. But I can't remember where I was going with this one. It was something to do with no, forget it. My brain. This is what happens when you get old people. Your brain, you stop in the middle. You forget why you walked into a room.
Mel, he's done it again. Put him in the home. Come on.
We talked about this.
Wheel him off.
George Burns, right, said that he was like 98 years old comedian before he died, and he said once about that. He says, "First you forget names, then you forget faces, then you forget to undo, then finally you forget to do up."
I regret that.
Halfway through that sentence now.
Well, I would say then, go on, sorry.
Ooh.
Ooh. All right, I'll move this on to the next set of questions. Then, Callum, have you got any pre-prepared, or can I carry on?
You can carry on.
Yeah, cool. So obviously, we sort of talked about the moments of inspiration that come through when you're writing songs, when you're making music, but we haven't actually really talked, other than should we say, the Wakeman and Wakeman duo. What other musicians inspired you to play the piano, and then further inspired you to become a producer?
Elton John is a massive, the way he plays, and when you were all talking about writing songs, I've been trying to write a song for 20 years, and I cannot get past. I get the idea of a song, I start to do some chords, and then immediately it sounds like everything I've ever heard, and it's not inspired. It bores the shit out of me, and I can't get past the first chorus. I can't get into the second verse, and I leave it there. I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things, probably all sound the same. But I'm getting a little bit further. Someone told me you've got to finish a song, even if it's shit. You've got to get through the whole song.
You do.
And I'm at that stage now, yeah. But when we're talking about Elton John, when Bernie Taupin wrote the lyrics and gave them to him, Elton could hear the music while he was reading the lyrics. And some of those tracks, like your song, "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me," absolutely insane tracks that just, where's that? Yeah, as you said, where does that come from? How does that exist in someone's mind and not anywhere else? And incredible. So when it comes to Elton John, I just like the way that he can do that. He can make a story out of a track. A lot of people can apply different parts of it, but there's two tracks there that I can map to my life, and it's almost like he knew me when he was writing that, and it's insanely close to me like that. Rick Wakeman, just technically incredible, absolutely technically incredible. There's nothing he can't play. There's nothing he can't handle. So just rather than the emotive side of it, Rick Wakeman's actually the technical side of it. I've remembered what I was going to say now. He was talking about when he was in Yes. He said, and Yes, which was a group of amazing musicians, right? They were absolutely, all these incredible musicians, the best of the lot, the super group that decided, But every time they did their progressive rock thing, he said, we'd come up with ideas. He said, and then it ruined it in the mixing process because there was 6 pairs of hands on it. Everybody, he said, the mixes sound terrible. So that bit was the worst part. He said, I hated everything we did after we got to the mixing stages. And so that's a massive thing with a band. If you do know the direction you're going in, and this is where the football team analogy works. There's one ball. There's no point in everybody chasing that ball around the field. It's better that you point it to him. Yeah, you might score the goal, but the team wins. You might not score the goal, but you're in the fucking winning team. It's good. It's a good thing. It's not about the glory. It's about being that whole part of the engine that gets that goal in the end. And that's where a good band is. Make it dynamic. Let's say this. And communication, being able to say the things you need to say without people's egos getting in the way. It's very, very easy for that to happen. But if you know that the person isn't saying it for any bad reasons, they're saying it for the good of the whole song, the good old band, then that reason's great. Everyone's on board with that then. And it doesn't mean that everything everyone says has to be followed up. You can all decide that's a shit idea and let's not do that. And then, that's fine, let's go to the next thing. And that's why it works for those bands. You're one of those bands. Regional One is one of those bands. I've seen you work so closely together with things, and it is a fantastic thing to see. And that's just why you're doing so well, I think. It's not just that. There's a couple of reasons, but that's one of the fundamental things. But yeah, the production side of things, when it came to keyboards, Vangelis, and he did a lot of film music, Chariots of Fire's famous Blade Runner, things like that. He broke the mold, and he can make synthesizers organic to me. And so when it came to production and how he makes all those synthesizers sound so clear together, that's where I started to realize what he was doing in terms of EQing, in terms of volume, in terms of pace, sound structure, what the actual sound was doing, where it fills in a gap, and things like that. So there is a point, I think, on most producers' careers where you don't listen to music the same as anybody else does. You separate the whole thing out like an airplane traffic controller looks at a map. Do you know what I mean? He can see 12 planes all coming in. He's got the vectors and the lines. He knows exactly what's going on. We just look at this fucking circle with a blob in the middle going, ah! What the hell's happening? So, but now I listen to the music like that. I'll hear a piece of music and I can see what they've done. I know why they've done it. And then not falling into the trap where you do the same things, trying to keep the creative part of it there. You're always looking at everything. That's the key.
It's trying to learn all those different things from those inspirations, isn't it? And then apply it in a way that might be creative to your personal tastes, and then somehow that's got to then map onto the bands you work with, the artists
that you want to actually get out.
Or you try not to. The way I do it is try not to. Is unless someone asks me for an opinion, I'm an engineer until that point.
And then you're drawing out of the artist the best that you think's in them, sort of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, Steve, what's his name? Stevie. He did Nirvana. He was famous for. He died just recently. I'm trying to think of his name is. But he was famous for getting the sound of the band. He'd let the band do what the band does, and then make that sound good. It's an Italian. That's it. Yeah. Albini, that's right. Yeah, and he didn't make a lot of money. He was always, he was charging people not a lot for being in the band. He got the band. He made the band sound like the band. That's what I do, because I suppose I didn't call myself a producer until I started working with someone when she just came in, Helena. She just came in with the song and the lyrics and the chords, and then wandered off again. And then, can you make that into a track? And I'm thinking,
producer at gunpoint.
Yeah, but then she liked that, and it was her sort of thing. So then that works for us really well. She can do that. She knows the song, and then I have a free reign, and I go off the piece with it. Sometimes that's really good. But then you don't want to do that. You don't want someone comes in. The first thing they're doing when they come into the studio is I don't want them to think that I want to change anything. And the best way to visualize it is to visualize it as an art form.
Yeah,
like
good
painting.
luck, Callum.
So if you look at if a painter, if I was to be an art gallery, right, then a painter came in and said, I've made this painting. I wouldn't want to change the painting, but I might decide what frame to put on it and what wall to put it on.
Yeah.
That's a really good analogy of it, I reckon.
Yeah. And then sometimes people do ask you, and then you do what you say, what you do. You with no ego, you say, well, what about this? What about that? I think that might work. And if they don't like it, it's not for them. It's not something that has to happen. But to throw the ideas in there are important.
Of course.
Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of good advice, actually.
Just before we move on, for the record, I do think you do that really well. Like every time we work in the studio with you, like it's a very natural form, like of just letting us do what we do. But if there is ever a gap or anything, I like, what's a really good example? Oh, like if we're doing Xmas, the claps and the maraca bits that in Xmas, like
that's in. Never mind. Yeah, that's a different. I was thinking something different. The acoustic version we haven't released yet.
No. Xmas, nothing to do with that. There's nothing else. Don't worry about that. But all of those little touches, that we wouldn't necessarily have think of. It's literally just we've got a whole puzzle, and we know there's one missing piece, and it's not in the box. And all of a sudden, you're just like, oh, but we could just use this, and that's that.
Yeah.
And you're very good at that. You are.
That's cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good at something.
Fantastic. And I was going to sort of say there's a lot of good advice for, I think, upcoming musicians who haven't really worked with producers or studios before. I can think of a few that I'd advise definitely, if they can, in the area local to us, to get over to Hangover Hill and give it a try. Just try out. Put a bit of cash aside each. It's not it's not going to be a massive amount of money if you put it together between you. Get into a proper recording studio, give it a go, because there's a whole process you've got to learn there if you want to be a professional musician. And on top of that, you want to do it with someone who knows what they're doing and will treat you nice and easy to start with. So lots of good advice.
Also, you'll have a blast. It'll be very funny. You'll have a good time. And failing all of that, there's usually dogs. There's dogs around also.
If you're woke, don't call.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah. Yeah, you will get offended immediately.
Yeah, it'd be sad. It's just a screening process on your answering machine, really.
See, the name Matt Black sort of does that for people because it goes the other way. I said I tell jokes about everything, and people shy away from racism and sexism and all the rest of it. But the way I look at it is, if my mate who's black tells a joke and it's funny, it's about a black bloke, then I should be able to tell the same joke. Otherwise, that's racist.
Yeah.
And there's a joke I use to demonstrate this. And when it comes to this is why the sense of humor helps with the production, as you Stevie said. It's part of letting people feel like they can be the same way, and then they can the gloves
It puts
are
you
off.
in a different mindset. Like it's a good mindset to be in creatively.
It's important. I think it's something I do on purpose. But it's a mate of mine who I don't know what part of Africa he came from, but he's actually black skinned, right? And he plays rugby in Christchurch. I've known him for about 30 years, and he said to me once, he goes, "What's 12 inches in weight?" And I said, "I don't know." He says, "Nothing." And I'm thinking, that's brilliant. That's brilliant because it's not racist. It's not attacking an ethnic minority or whatever you want to call it. But it was It was brilliant.
I'll have you know it is now, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I'm actually heavily offended.
I'm actually a minority now. I identify as one. So.
It is cold.
Well, I'm very much of the mind that if you can't ridicule something, it holds power over you. So with jokes like even ones that people consider racist, sexist, whatever, if you can't laugh it away, then it still holds its power to me. So
you're giving it
laugh
power.
At it, dude. Make it hurt, not you.
It's the reason why the British Army has been known to be indestructible in the past, and it's down to their humour. In the worst of times, they're telling the jokes that you would.
I had a good one from the Americans in World War II on that, actually. Yeah, there's some solid quotes on that.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true. And in the special forces, they actually actively look for people with a sense of humor. It's almost like you've got to be 6 foot tall. You've got to have a healthy sense of humor, otherwise you're going to die.
Absolutely. So aside from obviously the producing side and the recording side and the playing side of music, yourself and Mel have started to put on some live shows. So obviously that culminates with the Live and Unheard monthly show down in Poole at the Lighthouse. So quick plug, we are headlining the Lighthouse in Poole on the 1st of February, and we need as many of you there as we can possibly get. The more, the merrier. The more people that buy tickets, the better the production's going to be. So if you can get down to Poole on the 1st of February, please do. I'll put a link in the chat now.
There's links in the chat. There's links on the profile. There's links on Instagram. There's links on all our stories.
The thing to remember with this, as Simon said, that we do a monthly thing at one of the theatres in the Lighthouse. But so many people talk about the Lighthouse. They go, "Oh, I've never been in here. I don't know what's in there." There are 3 theatres in there. One's a concert hall that Michael Jackson's played on. There's the middle theatre. I call it the middle theatre. It's a 650 seat theatre, which is what we're
huge.
on. Yeah. So we normally use the smaller theatre, which is like 140 seats for the main things that we do every month. But we've booked this one, and it's literally 4 times the size of everything that we're doing. And it's not just a question of putting on the same event in a bigger space. There's so much more to it, both financially, in terms of organizational, staging, all the rest of it. So this is where we decided to put 3 bands. We've got 2 bands coming from outside the area, and we've got one of the strongest bands we know in the area, Regional 1. Basically, because this is what these bands will look like well on the stage that they should be on. So if you're not there and you miss it, then don't call us again either.
Yeah. This is the one, honestly. If you want to see us on a big stage, and you haven't seen us on a big stage before, we had our first real crack at that just a few days ago, actually, up in Wolverhampton. And we tested a few bits out ready for this 1st of February show. We're doing some bits. We're hopefully going to have some screens. We've had a chat with the engineers about some other special things that may or may not happen depending on how tickets go. So please do get those tickets as soon as you can. Callum, please clip this at the end and get it out on stories and everything.
Yeah.
This is the bang.
Send it out there. This is it. This is the one.
If you've got a ticket for your missus and if you're going, if there's 2 of you going, grab a friend each.
Dude, I bet the dog will love it. Bring him along. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you like dogs?
Yeah, I like him.
And invite all your friends.
Seriously, though, if you're a fan of Regional One, this is the show to see us at. We're pulling out all the stops. We've got a fantastic set list planned for you and a few potential guests. We don't know,
Surprises.
maybe we might do that on the big stage. It would be nice if we could. But yes, please do get those tickets. Link is in the chat now. And right, back to it. Tell us a bit about how Liven and Heard came about in the first place, man.
It's actually a good link because the whole premise of this original music, since I've been doing the studio, I've been listening to a lot of people coming in and writing songs that are better than anything you hear on the radio, anything. And these guys may be 17 years old and this is his first song, but you think that's genius. You know, it's like, I wonder what people who listen to Lennon for the first time thought, and I wonder what people who listen to Elton John for the first time thought, and all these people, and how many other people are there that will never be those people, but they're still writing these incredible tracks that touch a nerve, you know? So the original music that is in Dorset, I think, is richer than most other areas in the world. I don't know why it is. It's just a great place to be. And every week, at least every week, probably more times, almost every day, someone comes into the studio that I've never met before, writes a song that blows me out of the water. And then you'll see them never play that song again because there's no one, they won't have the confidence to do it. But then if you do see someone doing a gig, they're doing covers or whatever, if they shout out to an audience, do you want a cover or do you want an original? I've never heard an audience shout back cover. They always shout back original.
Yeah. So every time we've done that, for the record, I can attest it has been original.
Yeah.
Every time I've seen
There's a hunger for it.
Yeah, there is. But those people that hunger for it aren't all loudmouthed and shouty about it. So they don't go, we need this, we want this, we do right. They get a lot of people who want to sing Sweet Caroline and they're all football supporters, all the rest of it.
Yeah, or they're all painted orange.
Get the people who... So anyway, we were talking to someone about this and they had a link to someone at Lighthouse about 6-7 years ago. And they said, look, we've got this small theatre, we don't know what to do with it. Everybody doesn't like mime or whatever in it, but we decided, well, why don't we do like an open mic, but a showcase? But so it wasn't an open mic, but we organised bands to go in there. It's completely where they're playing their own stuff. So we've seen a band and we've heard them do a live, an original track, and we think, okay, if you've got half an hour of that stuff, then we want to hear the whole half an hour, or how many you want to do, in a place where people are going to listen to it, and there's no screens up, there's no football up. There's no distractions, but it's not stuffy atmosphere. It's like an open theatre. It's a really good situation.
A lovely atmosphere there, yeah.
And
every
then
time
we've done that, we've seen. I remember the first guy who played was Tim Summerfield, and I've seen him do looping. I've seen him do covers. I knew he did original music, and then I remember listening to that first performance. It was him and the Brothers Grimmer. That was the first one.
Yes.
Oh my lord, yeah.
Right. And then I remember listening to both of those acts, but Tim was the first one, and it was like, I never knew that song was about that, and it just made it into three-dimensional. But because he was being listened to, he got the confidence to play it the way he wanted to without feeling like he had to please anybody. And then that meant the audience was listening to someone doing it something because he was passionate about it. So the whole thing is, if we see someone that deserves a better stage to where they do, we ask them to be on Live and Unheard. And it's we thought, oh, this will last for about a month. And it's grown, and it's gone, and Mel works really, really hard behind the scenes to like now pull in different people, match them up with people who aren't always, it's not always the same, but it's the audience might sort of transfer from one to the other. We've had complete eclecticness there. There's someone I remember once, I can't remember the name of the band, I think it was called Velvet, I think, or something like that. I'm getting it wrong, but she was about 4 foot high with Doc Martens on. She looked like a golf club. The guitar was bigger than her, right? And the drummer looked like a 17-year-old Mick Fleetwood, who literally 6'8", and he was sat at these small drum kit with her at the front. And it was almost like Mick Fleetwood and Bjork. But the sound, it was not something I would have ever listened to, but the performance was fucking awesome. Everybody was like, "Whoa!" And it was absolutely insanely clever whatever they did, the sound they made and how they did it. It wasn't random. There was a pattern to it. There was a thought process to it. It all came round. It did the whole tied you up in a knot thing. and it was absolutely insane. And then we've had loud bands, we've had people doing comedy and ethnic music underneath, sort of almost poetry and things like that. And then you get the pop synthy stuff. We've had it right across the board. And so there's a silent majority of people that if they know that happens, they go and they just book a ticket, not knowing what they're going to go and see, and they enjoy it. Yeah.
Well, I think as well, like with you guys, and if you've been to any of these shows as well, you'll know. Not to, obviously we've been on those shows, so I don't want to say too much, but every act that we've heard from these sessions, from these live and unheard gigs, you know that you guys have booked them, so you know they're going to be good. Like you go in expecting, okay, this is this is going to be good. This isn't like a pub gig that people have just booked because we need to fill a slot, we need to get these people in.
Yeah.
This is people who have heard this and actually appreciate it and want, like you say, to give them the stage that they deserve.
There seems to be an increasing culture of trust around your guys' bookings, which is really good because it's building its own, I guess, its own sort of cult around the music and the performance itself, regardless of who's there, as long as they trust you that it's going to be a certain standard, which it always is. So, yeah, it's a really cool thing, and hopefully it becomes more and more popular.
No, man, it's another rung. It's another rung on the ladder. Like, it's just everyone in the community that that we know and we talk to and we try and build on this podcast, and we know through you and you're a structured part of, is that we're all just trying to build a nicer and easier music scene for everyone who wants to try it in Bournemouth. And I think that live and unheard is
essentially a pipeline, even.
Like it's a really good just rung on that ladder.
The number of times I say to Mel after a show when we're going home and getting a burger or whatever, it's I always say, look, wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be fantastic if someone in that lineup ends up being massive? And you think, do you remember that time we were sat 10 feet away from them? And we were like, they were playing to 90 people that like we're going, oh, this is great. And how many times has that happened to anybody who's massive now?
Well, every one of them.
It has to all of them
in
for
some
sure.
way.
Yeah, so it's bound to happen. There's a little story. I work very closely with a guy called Richard Digance, who's a folk musician from. He's one of those comedians with a guitar that around the time of Billy Connolly, Jasper Carrott, all that. And I've known him for almost 30 years. He's a very good friend of mine, and he used to go to Billy Connolly's open mic or open mic club jam night up in Glasgow. He used to travel up on the train, go to Glasgow, and the other people that were there playing on the stages were people like Mike Harding, Jasper Carrott, Max Boyce, Jethro was there. He used to play a couple of other things. Billy Connolly, you had Jerry Rafferty. All those people, right, were playing. And Ralph McTell, Streets of London, that guy, right? Now, and I said to him that no one knew anybody, but they were just like, when you were in that, when you used to go up there and watch these guys and chat away and have a beer and laugh and sing the songs and all this of it, did you know that every single one of them were going to be a huge name in the entertainment business? Every single one of them were a cornerstone of the music scene after that, after the Beatles broke out. And he said, no. He said, that's the weirdest thing. Everyone thought that Ralph McTell would. Everyone, because he was a good-looking lad. He was all the girls, and all, hey, how you doing? And that was it. They all thought he'd make it, right? And he did. Streets of London, he's great. But then they all became their own thing geographically. And then music stemmed from there and evolved from those guys as well. But you can't tell. But it's the future of the music. What's the music scene going to be like if that doesn't happen?
Yeah, honestly, we try and spread this particular culture of a sort of communal effort with the music side of it. I mean, something that stuck with me, I studied music and music business up at university about 10 years ago, so probably a bit longer now. And one of the things I was told by Biffy Clyro's old manager is, and it stuck with me a lot, this, is that no band comes up on its own. There's always a scene behind it. And you can sort of see that from the Camden scene, for example. Lemmy from Motorhead would be hanging out with David Bowie. They'd all be down there together, like the guys from Queen would be there. They'd be building this thing together. The same happened with the Welsh scene for a while. Loads of bands made it out of Wales.
It happened like in America as well. It's like Fleetwood Mac, all of the Varna guys, all of the Studio 666 stuff. Like they all come up together. Like the only reason half these bands, like the only reason this half
Scotland
these bands
as well.
exist.
Biffy Clyro,
Grunge.
But the
Grunge.
what we're really hoping is that essentially Dorset will have that time, because I think that's well on the go as well, especially in the sort of the rock side of it at the very least. Obviously, that's the world we live in, so there's going to be a bit of an internal bias there. But we've already got bands like South of Salem who are touring the country. The Bottom Line, partially from Dorset. These are bands that are already sort of heading that way. What we're hoping is bands like ourselves can start to make it too, and hopefully pull a load of bands with us as well. So we make sure when we're playing shows, we do our very best to book a local band that we want to see live and that we think is really fun. Good example, recently we've been having Namer on a few shows.
There are people out there. There are people out there now that know going to a live show is the way to circumnavigate all of the crap you see on television and go use proper music.
Exactly.
And there are people out there know it's just a slow process of getting people to see it. And also, we're in an era where you're fighting against the stream here, because the music business has broken itself. Where you had the people that could promote people and put them on the big stages, and had all that marketing muscle behind them. Well, they turned into accountants, and then that didn't become a music business in the end. And they fucked that up. And so now the underground is the music business. Where we are now, without being on television. Television, no one watches television anymore. And that was the major distribution method of getting people to be well known around the country. So radio's still strong. So we're back to the dark ages like that. So everybody who's as good as any of those bands you've mentioned in this era is just circling themselves in a pond where they're a bigger fish than they should be. But how do you get to that next pond? That's the hard part. But we have to bring it back to, it's not that difficult to do your own show, to put your own show on. You can go to a theatre and say, look, do us a favour, do it on a percentage deal, so no one's losing any money. You might not make a lot, but you won't lose it. So the punt isn't a dangerous thing to do. And then bring people with you. Put your music on vinyl. Do it on something that, and then nowhere else. Forget Spotify. Fuck Spotify off completely. Shitify, I call it. It's absolutely it's ruined everything for people. It might be the global jukebox, and if you want to release everything, half a year later on when it's not selling anymore, then put it on Spotify. Let that be the bin it goes into, because then all the music that's new, people who are interested in music, they'll follow where you get it from, Bandcamp or vinyl. Leave it like that and do it.
It's a difficult one. That I've got mixed opinions on that, because Spotify is still used by a lot of booking agents and labels in terms of if you're looking to get an advance, so you can put quite a bit of cash in on that next step up. I think at the grassroots level that would work absolutely. The struggle then becomes, because the industry standard is your Spotify numbers, and that with sort of like YouTube numbers still on the video side of it, plus estimate of ticket sales in that city. From and because there's a bunch of iPad nerds running the music industry now, they like their stats, they like their numbers. So I do think there's a very difficult balance to strike there.
It is a difficult balance, but I think we have to break it. I think we have to break that. We're like, who are we trying to please? Them, or we're trying to please people who like the music that we're recording?
Yeah,
precisely that.
And I mean, although the big shows are great, fantastic, getting to be a big show. They know that's what people want to do. But organic growth for a band, I think, is the only way to go, because then, it's the only way, because then you've got the fans with you. You can say, right, we're going to do this. We can say we're going to do that. Keep in touch with them on your terms, and then fuck off all the nerds. Take the wind out of their sails by we're really not needing them. But I mean, it doesn't make money quickly. The other thing to bear in mind with this is a psychological thing. I was thinking about this morning for some reason. I wouldn't consider, in terms of if people said to me, "Are you a successful musician?" No. Well, I mean, we managed to pay off. We don't have a mortgage now because we bought a boat, and that was the cheap way of doing things, right? But we've got to a point now where we're not paying through the nose, and we started a bit later in life than I wanted to, but we've got to that point. But a successful, when you say the success, someone who's got a mansion, someone who's got all the cars he wants, he doesn't have to look in the bank account. No, it isn't. If you're a musician and you're making a living at being a musician, and you wake up and you're not dead, then that is a success.
Yeah, you've done it. Like, that's it.
Right? That is because
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, because it's fun. You're living the life of a millionaire because you're doing what the fuck you want to for work. And it is more fun. So not losing sight of that. Now, if anybody with an iPad says, "Oh, you want to get in front of 10,000 people," yeah, that would be nice. But falsely, if you get that just by Spotify numbers, it still doesn't mean anything, and you're just feeding that top of the business. So by cutting that top off and along with the fairy, just then leaving the bottom half of the Christmas tree, it might look a bit odd, but it's the bit that's stuck in the ground, and it's the bit that will grow more branches.
Yeah, I agree with that. We've sort of gone for this hybrid model ourselves, where we're trying to build up. We've not put any money into Spotify, for example, to promote on there or anything. We have it there because we know people will go there to listen. Yeah, that's the only thing. For us, the music videos are more of a focus, really.
Yeah, go there after.
Yeah, I'd say, bottom of the pipeline,
on Spotify, but if it's half a year old, then put it on Spotify then. So then keep them in behind. Just keep them in like the background. They're not doing any favors to the musicians that are on there.
I did read an article.
We're very much focused on the videos. I think we quite like to have the visual element to our songs. So yeah, we put our promotions. When we release a song, the post that goes out for it will always be the music video if there is one. So that for us, that's most important because it shows what we're about as well as gives you an idea audibly. And we're starting to tell more of a story with all of our songs that should hopefully all tie together very soon as well. So for us, it's about that. I mean, how many bands were discovered when MTV was still good? You know what I mean? Like when Kerrang was still going, when Scuzz was alive, all these, and it's because you could tie that visual element and think, hey, they look pretty cool as well. They look like people I want to go and see as well as hear. So really for us, that's a big selling point.
The other thing as well, it was when I was talking to Rick Wakeman, when they were in Yes and all the other bands and things like that, they were talking in like the 80s. After doing tours, it was all massive. There's a lot of money going on, but they were still talking about that wasn't ever going to last. They were going, "What are you going to do after this?" Or I might open a guitar shop. No one thought of music as being a long-term thing. They thought it was a fad. And you look at the way the Beatles, the Stones, they've created that. Then you had the MTV era, and that's where it started to balloon a bit. And everyone thought, "Hang on, I can do this." And I can dress like a woman, and I can sound like this, but then they'll come up with different ideas, and then it became a style thing, and then it got to the 90s where it's sort of like saturated, and now we're trying to find our feet again. But the real musicians have still always been there, just hidden more in the woods. So that's what we're all about here at Hangover Hill is about those real musicians, and just if it all stopped in the end, we then still got a handful of people that can still fucking put on a show. And we might be the only last one in the world, but we can still do it. We don't need anybody else to do it with us.
You know, your Spotify numbers won't help you then, will they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What we want is people to come and meet us at shows, hang out, feel like they're hanging out with mates, but know that the show is very professional and that they're going to have a great fucking time. So that's what it's about.
And February.
Yeah, at the Lighthouse.
Back to that. Ticket link is in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. If you can make it down on the 1st of February, this is the show. If you're a Regional 1 fan, if you're considering seeing us at a show, this is the one to come and see us at. We're going to be bouncing around on a big old stage. There might be some effects, shall we say, that we'll be playing with. So I don't want to say too much about that.
Even if you haven't seen us,
if you're in the front row, don't go overboard on the hairspray.
Yeah. I've got to keep it light on this one.
Yeah, Stevie's flammable. But yeah, Matt, I think we're probably going to call it. We've gone over the hour, so thank you very much for joining us here. If you can stick in the call just after we end it on the public side, we'll have a quick catch up with you, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow anyway, hopefully for undisclosed reasons.
Just before we do end it, Matt, is there anywhere in particular that people can go to find you, to get hold of you if they did want to get into them studio sessions? Is it websites or?
Yeah, best place to look is Crime Watch first.
Yeah, check first, because if they've caught him, he's not going to be there. So
it's easy. What I say to people, if you look for the name of the company is Hangover Hill. And that's a pretty Google whackable. Hangover Hill Records. You'll find the website there. That's where they can find everything about me. If they want to look and they can't find it for some reason there, then Matt Black, but put Matt Black Piano Man. Don't forget the Piano Man. Otherwise, all you'll find is pots of paint and shit.
He's reading that verbatim from his gravestone. By the way.
I've got those in the comments as well, guys. So if you can go check out Hangover Hill Records, Hangover Hill Presents, and Matt Black Piano Man, we'd appreciate it. We're going to build a scene together. We're all doing our part, hopefully. Thank you so much for coming on, Matt, and thank you to anyone watching.
Been a blast, mate, and keep on doing what you're doing. Regional 1, yes.
Well, and you, sir, thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow for undisclosed reasons.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you all for
and
watching.
We'll see the rest of you 1st of Feb. See you there.
Yeah, 1st of Feb.
And if you're watching in the future, hello from the past. Goodbye.
Bye.